Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when the noise of the world fades just enough for a single question to rise. Who am I? Really? Not the titles, not the expectations, not the masks we wear to fit in, but the self that waits behind it all, the true self. Today I want to walk you through 5 essential steps to finding that truth within you. This journey is not linear. It is messy. It is painful, but it is also beautiful. And above all, it is necessary. Let us begin. From the moment our tiny feet first touch the ground of this world, we are taught to adapt. We learn to smile when praised, to remain silent when our truth shakes the comfort of others, to excel in areas that gain approval, and to suppress parts of ourselves deemed too strange, too intense, or too weak. It begins innocently, this molding of self to fit the expectations of family, culture, and society. Slowly, a structure forms, a persona, a mask. A necessary mask, perhaps, in a world that demands order, control, and conformity. But the danger lies not in the mask itself, but in the moment we forget it is a mask. When the reflection in the mirror no longer resembles the depth of our being, but only the version we think others will accept. Imagine walking through life in a well-tailored suit, never allowing the skin beneath to breathe. It becomes suffocating. It is no surprise then that so many people feel a haunting emptiness, even amid external success. We follow the scripts, collect the accolades, play the part with precision. And yet, something vital remains untouched. That something is the self, the deep and sacred essence of who we are, beyond all performance. Many of us have had this experience, standing in a room filled with conversation, laughter, and light, and yet feeling an inexplicable ache of solitude. An ache that cannot be explained away by circumstance. That silence inside, that echo of yearning, is the voice of the self, unheard, unseen, exiled to the shadows of our consciousness. It waits patiently for us to remember. It does not yell, for it knows the world favors noise. It whispers, and we must become still enough to hear it. To begin the journey home, we must confront the mask, not with disdain, but with curiosity. What role have you mastered? The one who always has the answers, the one who never breaks, the peacemaker who holds the family together. These roles may have once protected you, earned you love, or helped you survive. They served a purpose, but they are not you. They are only the outer garments of your being, useful but never sacred. To see this truth clearly is to risk. Risk the comfort of knowing who you are in the eyes of others. Risk being misunderstood. Risk unraveling the identity you have meticulously constructed over decades. Yet, within this unraveling lies liberation. There is no greater freedom than the one that comes from no longer needing to be anyone but yourself. And there is no greater responsibility, for to know the self is to carry its fire with humility and care. Consider the woman who had every marker of modern success: title, salary, influence. She was respected, even envied. But inside there was an ache, one that no promotion could quiet. She came to me not in crisis, but in quiet desperation, wondering why the life she had built felt so barren. The persona she wore, the confident, polished executive, had become a prison. When she finally allowed herself a sabbatical, a rupture in the fabric of her persona, she found something unexpected. Working with at-risk youth, she rediscovered a part of herself long buried. The wounded healer, the one who had endured pain and now longed to ease it in others. This was not a career shift, it was a soul remembering itself. And such stories are not rare, they echo through time and place. The artist buried in the accountant, the adventurer silenced in the suburban parent, the poet locked within the scientist. These inner voices never truly die. They sleep, waiting for our courage to awaken them. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to feel that fear and walk forward anyway. To confront the persona is to enter the realm of paradox. You must accept that what the world sees is only a fragment of your being, and you must love that fragment without mistaking it for the whole. You must accept the parts of you that have been hidden, not just the noble, but the broken, the wild, the strange. For the self is not an image of perfection. It is wholeness, and wholeness includes contradiction, light and shadow, grace and rage, strength and vulnerability. This is the path of individuation, not a destination, but a lifelong unfolding. Each step a peeling away of illusion, each step a return to something ancient and eternal within you. The mask need not be destroyed, but integrated, used consciously, not unconsciously, worn when needed, but not mistaken for skin. The true self does not seek applause. It seeks authenticity. It does not compete for status. It seeks communion with others, with nature, with the mystery of existence itself. And yet, this journey cannot be done in isolation. We need mirrors, but not the kind that distort us for their own comfort. We need sacred mirrors, those rare souls who see past our personas and call forth our essence. Find them, cherish them, be one of them. The world is full of people crying out for authenticity while hiding behind carefully curated masks. But imagine what might happen if we each dared to lower them, to speak from the soul, to act from the self, to live not in performance but in presence. We do not need to shout to be heard. The self speaks in the language of truth, and truth, when spoken from the depths, resonates like a bell across the chambers of the human heart. So I invite you not to discard your mask, but to hold it at arm's length and ask, "Who am I without you?" and listen. The answer may come as a whisper, a dream, a memory, a longing. Follow it. It may lead you down unfamiliar roads, to places that challenge and change you, but it will lead you home. Home not to the person others expect you to be, but to the being you were always meant to become. That is the great task. That is the great return. We journey through life with an image we show the world, polished, controlled, acceptable. But deep beneath that persona lies another presence, silent but potent, shaping our actions, whispering through our moods, erupting in moments we least expect. This is the shadow, not the villain of our psyche, but the orphan, not wicked but wounded. It holds the parts of ourselves we disowned long ago, the sharp bite of anger, the ache of need, the sting of envy, the trembling vulnerability we were told to bury. We exile these parts because they made others uncomfortable. As children, we learn quickly, cry too loudly and you're weak, show too much desire and you're selfish, express rage and you're dangerous. So we banished them. We split ourselves. But repression is not resolution. What we deny does not die. It lingers in the background, shaping the fabric of our choices, sapping our vitality, coiling into our relationships in distorted, sabotaging forms. You cannot negotiate with a shadow from a distance. It waits for your gaze, your honest, trembling gaze. To encounter the shadow is not to fall into despair, but to step into wholeness. The journey is not about conquering darkness, but communing with it. It is not to become monstrous, but to become real. When we meet the shadow with courage, we find that behind the anger is a fierce protector. Behind envy, a forgotten dream. Behind vulnerability, the longing to be held. These are not flaws to discard, but truths to embrace. They are messengers, bearing gifts we once believed were too much to carry. Consider the man who was always agreeable, always smiling, always drained. His anger had not vanished, it had merely gone underground. And like any caged force, it festered. Life demanded he be nice, and he complied until his soul began to dim. In the stillness of introspection, he met his rage. Not as an enemy, but as a voice saying, "You deserve space." That anger, once feared, became fuel. Not to destroy, but to protect, not to lash out, but to say no when silence meant self-betrayal. This was not a loss of control. It was the beginning of command. That was the moment he came alive. He had touched his truth. To embrace the shadow is to begin the sacred task of inner reconciliation. You will feel the heat of old emotions rise. Let them. You will hear the voice of shame whisper, "You're not enough." Challenge it. The shadow is not your downfall, it is the soil in which your authenticity grows. Freedom is not found in perfection, but in integration, and only when the rejected parts of the soul are welcomed home can we walk the world as we truly are, undivided, undiminished, and whole. In the silent depths of our being, there exists a presence more ancient than words, a presence that does not speak through the clatter of logic or the rigid form of language. It speaks in symbols. It whispers through dreams, it pulses through gut instincts, and it aligns the world around us in moments of eerie coincidence, those synchronicities that seem to defy probability. To listen to this voice is to come into contact with the inner realm, the true self that waits beneath the mask we wear in daylight. Have you ever been pursued by a dream that would not let you go? An image that returned again and again, insisting on being seen? That is no idle fragment of sleep. It is your psyche's cry for recognition. It is the soul knocking at the walls you've built, asking to be known. When a woman dreams of a locked box she cannot open, this is no random fantasy. It is a living image drawn from the wellspring of her unconscious, a mirror held up by the self, demanding attention. That locked box is more than metal and key. It is a sacred vessel, containing the parts of her story she dared not remember. And when she dares to face what she has buried, when she speaks the words long held in silence to her estranged mother, and the dream returns. But now the box is open. That is not a trick of the mind. That is transformation. That is the self-affirming, "You have acted. You have begun to heal." The language of the unconscious is not bound by time or convention. It is wild and intuitive, and it often frightens us because it asks us to feel what we have numbed, to see what we have denied. But if we have the courage to approach these symbols with reverence, if we stop dismissing our instincts and begin treating dreams as messages rather than noise, we awaken to a dialogue that has always been taking place beneath the surface of our lives. When you see a raven 3 times in a week, when you find an old photograph at just the right moment, when a stranger's words echo exactly what you needed to hear, that is the self speaking, not through coincidence, but through connection. Life begins to shimmer with meaning when we attune ourselves to this inner language. To ignore this symbolic communication is to live only halfway, to remain in exile from your own soul. But to honor it, to lean into it, even when it feels strange or uncomfortable, is to open a path toward wholeness. It is an act of remembering who you are beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the expectations. When you listen, truly listen, you will find that the self is not silent. It has always been speaking through the symbols, the dreams, the shadows, and now finally you are ready to hear. In the noise of the world where the clamor of success and ambition echoes at every turn, there is a subtle, almost imperceptible pull that guides us towards something deeper. It is not the sound of the awards or the applause, nor the ticking of the clock that marks the accumulation of achievements. It is the quiet voice of the soul, calling us to seek meaning rather than mere success. Ask yourself, truly ask, what moves you at the core? What stirs your heart in a way that nothing else can? For it is not the accolades or the milestones that will fill the emptiness we all carry, but the things that resonate with the deepest part of our being. We live in a time when success is often measured by the heights we reach, by the titles we earn, the money we accumulate, or the fame we achieve. These things are temporary, fleeting, and ultimately hollow if they are not aligned with the true calling of the soul. True fulfillment does not come from climbing the tallest ladder or crossing the finish line of someone else's race. The path to authentic joy and peace is far more personal, far more intimate than any external measure of success. It is found when we stop chasing what the world expects of us and begin to listen to the quiet urgings that rise from within. The question then is not how much you have achieved, but whether you have connected with your own truth. What is it that breaks your heart? What is it that makes you weep in awe? The things that stir us in this way, whether it be the creation of art, the nurturing of a garden, or the simple act of helping another, are not trivial distractions. They are the whispers of the self, calling us to something more. These pursuits are not just hobbies or passing fancies. They are the threads that, if followed, can lead us to a deeper, richer existence. This is not just philosophical idealism. It is grounded in the experiences of countless individuals. Research has shown that those who pursue intrinsic goals, things that align with their inner values, such as connection, growth, and purpose, report a far higher sense of well-being than those who chase after wealth, status, or superficial accomplishments. The contrast is stark. People who allow themselves the freedom to pursue what matters deeply to them are more fulfilled, more joyful, and more at peace with themselves. They have found the key to a meaningful life. So, if you feel drawn to something that doesn't make sense on a practical level, if you are compelled by a passion that seems out of place in the world of metrics and deadlines, heed that pull. It is your true self, speaking to you from a place beyond the noise and distraction of daily life. It is your soul reaching out, urging you to step onto the path that only you can walk. And when you walk that path, guided by the deeper currents of your heart, you will find not only a sense of purpose, but also a profound connection to life itself. To truly live, we must first confront the deepest paradox of our existence. To become who we are meant to be, we must let go of who we think we are. It is as though the very identity we have built, the one we cling to so fiercely, must be stripped away in order for the truth of our existence to emerge. This is not a physical death, but a death of the ego, the false self we have spent a lifetime constructing. It is the death of illusion. In the journey of life, we are often taught to protect our self-image, to build walls around our sense of who we are, to shape ourselves according to external expectations and internal beliefs. We build this identity with every choice we make, with every mask we put on, convinced that if we can just manage to live up to the roles we assume, we will be safe. We hold tightly to this constructed self because we believe it is what defines us, what keeps us grounded, what gives us meaning. Yet, the truth is that the more we cling to this constructed self, the more we distance ourselves from our true nature. The more we attempt to control our lives through the ego, the more we suffocate the very essence of who we are. This egoic self, constantly striving to meet the demands of society, our family, and our inner voices, creates a false sense of security. But beneath this facade lies a vast unknown, an ocean of potential waiting to be discovered, if only we dare to let go of the shore. The death of the ego is not something to fear. It is not an ending but a transformation, a necessary shedding of the old to make room for the new. Yet, despite its necessity, it is profoundly terrifying. The fear of losing ourselves, of no longer having that protective shell to hide behind, is a fear that runs deep in every human heart. It is the fear of being exposed, vulnerable, and unmoored from all that we thought defined us. To surrender control is to invite chaos, to face the unknown, and to relinquish the very thing we have held most dear, the self. But this very surrender, this letting go, is the gateway to liberation. It is only when the ego softens, when the tightly held walls around our sense of self begin to crumble, that we can experience the freedom that lies beyond. The true self is not a concept, an idea, or a set of beliefs. It is an experience, a living reality that exists beneath the surface of our constructed identity. To experience this self is to let go of the need to define it, to categorize it, or to limit it. The true self is boundless, expansive, and ever-evolving. It is not something you possess, it is something you are. This journey is not easy. There are moments when the ego fights back, desperate to preserve its power, to cling to the familiar. In these moments we may experience what some call a dark night of the soul, a period of intense suffering, confusion, or despair. This is the point at which the ego begins to collapse, unable to maintain its grip on reality. It is the terrifying feeling of losing control, of watching everything you have known and believed about yourself fall apart. But as with any profound transformation, it is in these moments of despair that the seeds of renewal are planted. It is in the darkness that the light begins to shine. The dark night of the soul is not an event that can be avoided. It is a necessary part of the process of self-discovery. The ego must die, and it must do so in the fire of suffering and disillusionment. But once it has burned away, what remains is not the emptiness we fear, but the fullness of our true being. This is the rebirth that follows the destruction. It is the emergence from the ashes, like the phoenix rising anew. The death of the ego is not an annihilation, but a transformation, a metamorphosis into a more authentic, more real version of ourselves. When we emerge from this experience, we do so not as the same person we once were. The old self has fallen away, and in its place there is something new, something that is not bound by the limitations of the past. This new self is not defined by the roles we play or the masks we wear, but by the truth of who we are beneath it all. It is an expression of the deeper essence of our being, untainted by the illusions of the ego. This process of ego death, though challenging, is a necessary part of the human experience. It is only through the destruction of the false self that we can come to know the truth of our own existence. It is only through surrendering control that we can discover the boundless potential that lies within us. The ego may be a useful tool for navigating the world, but it is not the whole of who we are. We are not defined by the roles we play, the achievements we accumulate, or the identities we construct. We are much more than the sum of our parts. We are, at our core, pure consciousness, alive with potential, waiting to be realized. This is the paradox of life. We must die before we can truly live. We must let go of the self we think we are in order to discover the self we are meant to be. This is the journey of self-realization, the journey toward truth, and it is one that every human must undertake, often in the face of great resistance and fear. But on the other side of this journey, there is freedom, there is peace, there is clarity. The ego will fight to preserve itself, but it is only in letting it go that we can experience the liberation that comes from living in alignment with our true selves. The death of the ego is not a loss, but a gift. It is the gift of freedom, of awakening to a reality that is far greater than we could have ever imagined. It is the gift of life itself, fully realized and unencumbered by the limitations of the false self. So, we must let the ego soften. We must allow the walls we have built to crumble. We must surrender the need for control and step into the unknown. For only in this surrender can we discover who we truly are, and in discovering this, we find the peace and freedom that we have been searching for all along. The journey may be difficult, but it is a journey worth taking. So I ask you now, will you confront your mask? Will you meet your shadow? Will you listen to the whispers in your dreams? Will you follow the thread of meaning? Will you let go of the self you've constructed to uncover the self you are? This is not a journey of days, it is the journey of a lifetime. But every step you take towards your truth is a step towards wholeness. In the silence of your own heart, your true self is waiting. Go and meet it. Thank you.